my default settings, factory settings, were just, you know, pro-choice, Republicans are evil, all they care about is money, you're the good guys.
Democrats are nice, they care about poor people.
Yeah. We make a lot of inappropriate jokes, and we were joking on this week, so I'm like, what? Maggie was saying, oh, who's gonna want to sponsor this show? Because I said something like, I was joking about how the Golden Globes went vegan, and I was like, I just miss the good old days where, you know, a man could be a man, and a woman was in the kitchen, and Maggie's like, Jesus, you can't make even jokes like that, because someone will clip that and then say, see, here's Bridget with her internalized patriarchy.
Unless you say that everyone from the 1950s was a racist, bigot, homophobe, you're canceled.
Yeah, but should we just pre-cancel? Because comedy is, I think, saying those, you know, I said something that was really, it's always those off-the-cuff jokes you make that are completely inappropriate, that I think I said something about Cardi B, and we were filming, and the dumpster fire, which, and I said, you know, she said, threatened to go to Nigeria. And I said, I was like, have fun with Boko Haram. And, you know, Maggie and Sam, who are in there filming with me, my cousin Maggie, who's my producing partner, and Samantha, who's also on the team, they started dying laughing, because that's what's funny, is those things that are off the cuff. And if you say something like that now, and you aren't in a position like I'm in, which is slightly immune to cancel culture, you will get canceled, or you're in risk of getting canceled. So I think comedy has become a lot more afraid. And then, you know, the argument that people say is like cancel culture isn't real is that people like Ricky Gervais and Dave Chapelle are making jokes. Well, they're millionaires.
Yeah, they're multi.
And they're powerful. So you can't use people who, or even J.K. Rowling, you can't use billionaires and multimillionaires as examples of people who are cancel-proof, because they're cancel-proof just because they're rich.
Do you sense, though, that people like us, maybe if Gervais and Chapelle, let's say, are doing it at like the Air Force level, that we're sort of more the foot soldiers in this, or something like, or we're in the tanks on the ground, and we're offering cover to the average person that is the foot soldier in this, that just wants to be able to work a real job, but still occasionally say what they think without being mobbed, and we are actually offering them a little bit of cover in that?
Yeah, I think that people feel confused, and there is that sense of terror that's, but also hilarious, and we were talking about this as well in Dumpster Fire, just how it's almost like a defense. Humor for me is a defense mechanism. It is for many people, and that's why inappropriate jokes are funny, because you're like, World War III, right, guys? And then the memes come out, and the memes are hilarious, and so people are using humor to try and make sense of a world that's really crazy. And then you have all these people who are experts, and I always say no one knows anything. I mean, even experts, they might know things about, they might have things to contribute, but no one knows what's going to happen. So anyone who's telling you, like, here's what's going to happen, is really just projecting their own biases and hopes into the world. But no one is like Nostradamus. They're not going to. So I think people just want to laugh to make sense of it.
You mentioned your factory settings.
Yeah.
Which I have credited you with many
times.
Thank
you. I really appreciate that.
I'm 99% sure I credited you when I mentioned it in the book. I suddenly, as I'm saying it, I'm suddenly afraid that I didn't, but let it be known that you were the first person that came up with the phrase factory settings that I had ever heard. Can you just explain what factory settings are? I know we talked about it last time, but I think it's such a right way of sort of looking at why everything is so screwed up, or sort of how you would take everything down to first principles to then sort of look at the world.
Yeah, factory settings is really just the default that you were kind of installed as a child. For instance, I was raised in a very liberal family. It was very East Coast. I was thinking about the other day, I'm like, I don't think I even met anyone who was pro-life until I was in my 30s.
Until you were on Twitter.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it might have been, I just was not exposed to, I was in Minnesota, but we lived in the city. So I was always very much, and again, I wasn't really, engaging in the debate club at school. So I had some conservatives in my life, but my default settings, factory settings, were just, pro-choice, Republicans are evil, all they care about is money, you're the good guys.
Democrats are nice. They care about poor people.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a personal thing, or that generally, when I've used the phrase, maybe this is my own take on it, I've sort of said to people that the factory settings that we're all given pretty much, if you grow up in America, or in the last 40 years, let's say, is that is the narrative. So yes, of course, some people are brought up, say, Christian conservative, and they're brought up pro-life and whatever. But that's really an outlier to the
counterculture,
right, to the main set of ideas that are sort of accepted out of the gate, which are Democrats good, Republicans bad, Democrats for poor people, Republicans for rich people, Democrats, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, it just depends on where you grow up, because I think everyone's factory settings are different, and it depends on your region. So if I was raised in, somewhere in the South perhaps, or in Texas, or in a different family, then perhaps I would have different factory settings. My very good friend was raised conservative, and he was raised to think all liberals are idiots.
Lefties, not liberals.
Lefties. Yeah. But and that they, can't argue any of their own points. So he just won't even really engage in a leftist debate, because he thinks that was the way he was raised by his family that was conservative. But it was also known that they were not the mainstream point of view or voice.
Right, that set of ideas wasn't the thing coming down to you from Hollywood and the media all the time.
Right, so, and to kind of keep those ideas somewhat on the down low. So even in graduate school, he's had to kind of pretend, just fake, go along with a lot of the crazy stuff that he's seen, and just because he wants to kind of swim through and get done and be done with it. But so I think that's interesting too. I don't know. It's been interesting hearing from as many conservatives as I have in the past couple of years, their own struggles at colleges, and how they're kind of these, they're outliers really in the culture. And I never knew that, because I was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Give me the weed.
Well, let's back up for a second, though, because that is relative to all this. For people that don't know you or didn't see our first interview, you're a former addict, which I think in a lot of ways seems to set up sort of your view on all of this, that this isn't, that the culture war, for as important as it is, right, and this is what we do every day, and I do believe that this fight is the fight for Western values and all of these things, like it is important, but that you've already lived through like your own existential battle for existence, right?
I feel like that, I grew up in a kind of crazy household too, so I think there are a lot of people probably like me who grew up in dysfunctional homes where the culture, as it's gone increasingly more crazy, I'm like that meme, the little, dog drinking coffee, like this is fine while everything's on fire, because that was what I was used to. So the culture is finally reflecting, like, oh, I know how to handle this.
The culture has caught up to your dysfunctional home.
Thank
I don't
God.
know what that says,
but I think the existential crisis, the first time I had it was 19. Let's be clear, I'm still an addict.
I was making you a retired addict.
That's still there. I can do anything addictively, even if it's good for me. And I do have like a crazy, I get fixated on things and obsessed with them. Twitter is a great example. I have a hard time. People are always like, how do I get on Twitter? What do I do? And I don't know what to tell them, because I love Twitter. I'm like, I need to put myself away.
Yeah.
So
But you take some breaks too.
I do, right? And I have a pretty healthy relationship to social media for the most part. But
and it's about to get healthier. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. Yeah.
I think what being in recovery has done for me during all of this craziness, and I just celebrated 6 years of sobriety in October, it I can't personally be in anger or resentment because it puts my sobriety in danger. So I can't live with that stuff. So I quickly have to figure out how to come into acceptance.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about comedy instead of the nonstop yelling you get everywhere else, check out our comedy playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.